Hello again. Good morning and welcome back. Welcome back to Who Am I? That show that just keeps on going. Every morning we just keep coming into this space and doing the same thing. Don't really know exactly what I'm up to. I know the question is, who am I? And the reference is source energy. And the reason we do that, we want to keep the conversation somewhat contained, but we also have goals. I do have goals, but I'm not going to be really watching, keeping score of whether those goals are being achieved or not, because in a way that part of it isn't really my business. But I would like to, I do have things that I want to accomplish. I do have practical matters that I want to see improved. I believe that all the woes of human beings come from the fact that we don't understand reality. We don't understand how it becomes. We don't get it when it begoes. That's my own thing, becoming and begoing. And actually that's, it sounds funny, but it actually makes a lot of sense to speak of it that way. When you're talking about the rolling manifestation, what becomes and then what passes away, and something else becomes, actually you don't have to worry about passing away. Just look at the becoming. And the passing away part is probably just going to take care of itself. So what are we talking about? I believe that if we understood who we were, that we would get along a lot better on this planet. We would get along better with the rest of the creatures around us. We would get along better with other human beings. We would accomplish our collective goals more smoothly, more quickly, more easily, more happily, more joyfully. All of those things. All of them are stated goals. More joy, more fun, more ease, more efficiency, more clarity, more freedom, more. We are all about the more, and we shouldn't apologize for it. The more that we should watch ourselves about is a more that greedily takes more to myself and doesn't add in or acknowledge the needs of the rest of us. Because when you weave together abundance from a place that does acknowledge the needs of the rest of the field, ooh, it can get good. You can have tremendous abundance. We can all have tremendous abundance, by the way. It isn't a finite pie, in spite of the fact that we have been taught that it's a finite pie. And so somebody with way more, they've taken not more than their fair share. There may not be as much truth to that as we have thought. When we understand who we are and how this great machine, it's almost like a machine, you could call it a machine, but it's so much more than a machine. It's a living universe is what it is. But it operates in a particular way. And you can operate with it, and we could operate with it. And we could immediately clean up the planet, solve every one of our problems, feed all the children, stop fighting all the wars. Sounds so easy, doesn't it? Well, you know, in a way it kind of is easy. We just have to understand who we are and then start acting out of the logical interpretation of that, of who we really are. So that's why the name of the show is Who Am I? Who am I? Because that's the question. Who are we as human beings? What is our story? We've got the macro and the micros of those. The macro, there's just the one. The micros, there are many. And I am one, and you are one, and you are a synthesis, a combination of the great macro, of which there is only one, the macro and the micro, of which you are divinely individual. That's who you are. That's who you really are. I'm telling you, that's who you really are. In physicality, in spirit, in past, present, future, that's who you are. You are that combination of the macro, who's looking at everything, and getting the upload from everyone, from all positions are uploading to the macro. The macro has all the information. The interesting thing is the micro has it too. But the micro has it in micro form. And so in order to be able to read the information of the macro, of the allness that you have, well, I just think it's trickier because all of the vibrational frequencies are all stuffed into a very tiny package. And it's harder, I don't know if it's harder, it seems harder, to read those frequencies from the tiny position as opposed to the allness that is reading the frequencies from their larger position. It probably doesn't make any difference. What am I talking about? I've already gone off the deep end. I can feel it. I'm talking about the holographic nature of the universe and the way that this universe is transferring data, the way it's moving all the information around between all of the scales within the whole universe. All of the information is moving. All the information of what? All the information of all the universe is moving. You know, I've got to go get a glass of water. I have a can of water here. It's not a can, it's a water bottle, but it seems to make the metal, something about it makes my mouth so dry. I'm going to go get a glass of water. If I come back, I'm going to be a tiny bit discombobulated in that I'm not going to be right exactly where I was in this discussion. But I'll get back into it, so hold on. Well, I'm back. So I kind of remember a little bit of what I was talking about. It had something to do with the allness and the way it moves information around. The holographic nature of the universe, which means, by the way, that you are holographic, which means, by the way, that you contain all the information of the whole, packed in the. So, I think the magic piece, the reason this works is because it turns out that it is possible through a vibrational frequency, an interference pattern. It is possible to carry an infinite amount of information on an infinitely small point. There's not a size cut off. Like if you're going to carry X amount of information, it has to be this size or bigger. You know, it's not like that. It is possible to hold an infinite amount of information on an infinitely small frequency. Excuse me. And because of that, it is possible that, you know, all of the information of the universe is probably contained in every Planck. I know it's contained in every proton, but it's probably contained in every Planck. And there's probably some kind of a sub-Planck field within the Planck that I don't know. So what it is what it is. The question is, who am I? Remember that? And the answer is, well, there's a whole lot of words that go with the answer of that. But the reason we ask this question is that I believe that it is our not knowing who we are that is making us F up in the world so badly. It's also allowing a relatively small cadre of oligarchs and authoritarians to exploit us. I'll tell you how they have done it. And you're going to feel outraged if you get to the point where, so if you start with, I didn't know this, and get to the point where you understand what I'm truly telling you has happened to us, you're going to have a moment where you're pissed. And I can understand that, and I'm pissed too. But it turns out when you truly understand the laws of the universe, as we're going to be discussing them in reference to this question, who am I, which we're trying to clarify because I want us to understand who we are so that we can do better on this planet. Just matter of factly. But as it turns out, when you understand how the laws work, then you know that that very feeling of outrage, that even if it's small, a feeling of frustration or a feeling anything in the negative scale, anything that appears on that negative vibrational scale, which, what is that emotional guidance scale? It looks like this. Oh, wait a minute. Let's go to this one instead. Anything that falls anywhere below, at or below boredom. So when you're in frustration or disappointment, doubt, worry, blame, actually, if you jump right to blame, anger, revenge, hatred, and jealousy, which is actually the ones that you feel about the people who have done this, not jealousy so much, but the really comfortable, beautiful and abundant lives. Well, are they comfortable? Are they abundant? Let's talk about this. Anytime you fall into any of the negative states of emotion, you have unplugged yourself from your source. And the second that you do that, you no longer have access to all of the good information. You're not in the room anymore. You're not with everybody. You've detached from universal consciousness. You are not in the place where we all are. You detach, and so you're going to have your moment where when you realize what I'm telling you has happened to us, and that we should be very angry, and we should be railing against it, but we really shouldn't be angry. Neither should we be railing against it. What we should be doing is doing something about it. And there is plenty to do about it that does not have to do with storming the homes of the aristocrats with pitchforks and torches and guillotines. We're not going to get to that because that's not actually necessary or desirable. We're going to do something different. We're going to fix this. And this is how we fix this. First of all, you got to understand who we are and how really cool we are. How extraordinarily equipped we are to handle the situation that we have got. the challenges that have arisen to humanity. We can fix this because we are made of this incredibly malleable divine matrix that can become anything we want it to. We just have to focus upon what we want and continue to focus upon what you want. No matter what it looks like around you, keep focusing, keep focusing, keep focusing. We're going to be able to do this because we're going to do it from a high degree of reality. From a state of a high degree of reality and less superstitious nonsense mixed in here. We're going to know how this really unfolds, and then we're going to unfold it just the way we want it. And we're going to end up with a world that is fabulously abundant and beautifully, harmonious. Did I say abundant? Because we can foster the abundance that is natural to creation. We can co-create with creation. We can get into alignment with it. And its desires become our desires. Just lock yourself in that way. Lock your two selves in so that who you really are and what who you really are needs becomes what you want. And I'm not sure, I think I left out some words in the grammar there as I was trying to enunciate that. There are so many exciting things to talk about in this subject. I can hardly wait, and I wish I didn't just have an hour and a half, but we're going to go play 9 holes of golf this morning, and my daughter's coming over. We've got to get her car fixed so that her air conditioning works so that her and her baby don't broil in the sun. I only have a finite amount of time that I can set completely aside from all the rest of the world, and I speak in this space completely disconnected in a way, and yet my intention is to fully connect with actual reality, how things really are. When you get into alignment with your inner being, you do come into alignment with how things really are, because your inner being knows how things really are. So, let's see. Where shall I go from here in this moment? So, who am I? I find that when I lose my trail, it's helpful to circle back around and ask the question again, because it always comes back to the same thing. And it's not just who am I, but who am I is a nice pithy way of summing the whole thing up. Because it's a whole range of questions. And the question, so it's who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? How did I get here? Where am I going? What's the problem? What are our problems? What are our big problems? And how to overcome the big problems. How to get from where we are within those big problems to where we'd like to be with those problems in the rearview mirror. How do we do that? All of that is part of this discussion. Because our understanding of our own equipment and how our focusing mechanism, it's all about focus. The measure of your success is going to, that's not how to say it. The success that you get is going to come from your focus, where you focused correctly, not your action. Now, it helped when you focused correctly and then acted. That's the sweetest spot right there. Focus correctly and then take the impulses to act from that position. That's optimal. And it's likely that you did some of it and some of something else, and we're a mixed bag. We're back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. If we could learn how to hold the momentum of the positive stream and then go with that without our thinking brains having to be so involved. But we don't want to do it if our thinking brains don't understand what we're doing. And so our thinking brains are leading the way, and that's why we've got the mess that we've got, because there actually is a smoother, more efficient source of organizational energy that is trying to organize us in pleasing ways. And ways to please us in ways that our thinking minds haven't even thought of, you know. Although I'll tell you the truth, if our thinking minds would consciously and intentionally get into alignment with this greater self that we truly are and start actively, consciously co-creating with it, I'm telling you people, there truly is literally nothing that we cannot do. Certainly nothing that we want to do that we couldn't do. We can do anything. All we have to do is learn how to focus upon the wanted as opposed to focusing upon the, I'm going to use this one. Instead of focusing on the real, quit focusing on reality, people. Focus upon how reality actually comes into being. So here's my, I'm not sure what slide I had on before. Did I have this one? Or was I still on the girl? I can't remember where I moved. No, I was on the emotional guidance scale. That's what I put it on. This right here, this one is, so just imagine this. This is who you are. Most of you is this vibrational aspect of you. Now, let's just talk about the part of you that connects to who you think you are. You know, your conventional self. Let's talk about the source aspect of you that just connects to you. Now, that source aspect of you goes all the way out and connects to the entire cosmos. All of the rest of the planets, the stars, the galaxies, all the multiverses. It's connected to all things. But you don't really need to be concerned with all of that, do you? Not really, except in general philosophical ways, unless you're an astronomer, and then more specific scientific ways. But you don't really have to be connected to it in the way that your source is. Although just know that there is an aspect of you that is truly in touch with all of reality. And so you don't have to be quite so much, you in your small self. Reality, and I'm going to air quote that again, reality is not actually your purview. It's not your lane. Know that your inner being is in touch with reality, knows where all the parts are, all the pieces, knows who you are, where your resistance is, what you believe, what you desire, where you are in your path. She's very sensitive and gentle about, even though she knows all things, she's in touch with everything. I just made it a she. I don't know why. Don't argue with me about that. I don't know if it's a she. It feels like something when I call it a she, and it feels kind of good, so we're just going to leave it there. Your inner being is a she. Unless you want it to be a he, don't be resistant. Your inner being is in touch with everything. But there's an aspect of her that cares about what you care about. You know? And she wants what we all want, actually. That's what she's all about, is the desire, the want, the desire, not the want as in the yearning and the lack. I don't have it, I want it, I yearn for it. I'm not talking about that want, that desire. I'm talking about just the impulse to better, the impulse to the more, the impulse to the expansion, the impulse to the improvement, that desire. That is where she is standing. And she's standing in a place where all the crossroads of all of us meet So there actually is a position where it's a win-win game here. It's not a win-lose game like we have been taught. We get taught it in some ways. We're taught it's all about competition, you know, and then sometimes we're taught that no, it's all about loving cooperation. We're taught that like maybe one day a week, and the other 6 days it's all about the competition. But it isn't really all about the competition. Those at the top are actually collaborating. The ones at the bottom are the ones competing. And so, yeah, competition is in the mix, but it isn't all about competition. I think that it's more about finding the win-win position, because there ultimately is only one of us here. It's me to the macro is the one that's here. And when you do the same thing, you're the same being, but you're being it from over there, and I'm being it from right here. And there really is a way we can rope one another into the most delicious cooperative componency, to our mutual desires. So what could our mutual desires be? Well, if you get real general, then we all agree. Freedom, joy, loving, we want our, we all love our families, right? And our friends and our families. We all love our own friends and families. So them doing well would be great. Us being free, each to walk his own path, that'd be great. And now some of us still are. And there are scatterings of people who are free or not free all around the world. There's those who are relatively free to move about, and others who are way less free to move about. Those whose desires, whose needs are being met, and others whose both their needs and desires are being met. It seems to be all kinds of mixed around the board, around the world. But I'm telling you, your success or not success has way more to do with where you are in your consciousness and how you've lined yourself up and how you are focusing upon the field where you stand. That's determining how you are able to move through it. And what you are getting, what you're rendezvousing with, how you're feeling as you go. It all has to do with you, and it doesn't have anything to do with physical conditions anywhere. You can learn how to focus, and you can go anywhere. You can do anything, but you just got to look at the whole thing differently. So as long as you're looking at it in this kind of hard, imagine that it's physical and non-malleable sort of perspective, it's hard, it's made of stuff, and I'm separate from it, and all these things are not possible. And as long as you keep looking at it that sort of way, well, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. But there's all kinds of ways to look at this, and this universe is way more malleable than we ever imagined that it was. And if we understand ourselves, particularly the morphogenetic field of humanity, and how it needs to synergistically and harmoniously co-create and co-combine with the rest of the field around it, in order for us to get our needs met, we've got to create food. And in order to create food, we've got to work with this system, the system of biology, and how it interacts with itself and everything else around it. We've got to start doing it in alignment. I'm starting to realize I have put this picture up, started to talk about it, and then sort of drifted away. Now I'm talking about other things, and I don't know why this slide's even up anymore, except for that it is an illustration of your two minds. Your source mind connected to all of the rest of reality. This is why you don't have to face reality. This is why you, in your conventional self, can a little bit more try to face where we're going instead of where we are. Because that's what your inner being is doing. Now, you can't fully be your inner being because you've got to be your specific self. You've got a job to do. You've got to be the micro to the macro. Your inner being is the macro. You've got to be the micro. But in your micro, you need to align with reality, but you don't have to face the hard details of the specifics that are on the ground in any given moment. You don't really have to do that. You can keep your consciousness more thinking about where it is you want us to be, or where you want to be, for instance. Daydream about it. Think about it. Think about how great, which is what I do. This is what my hour and a half is really all about. We're talking about who am I, but by the time we're at the end of the show, I'm going to be in a place where I'm going to be cheerleading where we're going and how cool it's going to be. And in the meantime, we're going to discuss our design so that you can understand how us not knowing this design is creating the havoc that you might see around you, depending on whether you're focusing on havoc or whether you're focusing on some really wonderful things. The world is actually such an amazing place, and there are millions and millions and millions of us all out there playing like we have never played in our lives. You go to the golf courses, there's stuff full of everybody's playing golf. The cruise ships are full of people cruising and laughing and joking and playing and enjoying themselves, enjoying each other, focusing on pleasant aspects. They're playing with the ecosystems around us. Ecotourism is big. Ecotourism is a great thing because it's got lots and lots of consciousnesses focusing upon nature around us and the living creatures and enjoying the living creatures. And that helps because as the other parts of us destroy the living creatures, then there are eyes on it that are noticing it, that are not liking that. Our inner beings do not care for that at all. And when we witness such things, that we shoot off rockets of desire. The desire being, I want to play with the rest of the world. I do not want to be responsible for killing it, just so that I can, whatever. As a matter of fact, we end up, ironically, doing a lot of killing of the natural environment as we create the infrastructure to help move us around the world to enjoy the same thing that we're killing by building the infrastructure and moving us around. And then there's all of the needs of human beings that follow the eyes on the human beings that are now looking at the natural environment that you've built the infrastructure to get the human beings there. To that in itself kills the infrastructure, kills the other beings. But I believe that all of that would be way, 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 way less if our main means of propulsion, our main means of energizing this cultural ecosystem that we have created as human beings, if our main propulsion was not fossil fuels, I believe that we could do everything that we already enjoy doing, and do it more and better and more creatively and more joyfully. We could do all of the things that we do if we were not using fossil fuels. And we're going to talk a bit this morning about how to get off of fossil fuels. I have some ideas about how to begin that. And I'm telling you, we've got to get involved. And I'm not talking about with your action. Just think about it. And start here. Start here with my show, Who Am I? We're going to think about how to get off fossil fuels. And we can think and we can talk. And you can do this. You can smoke a doobie. You can drink a whiskey or something. You can kick a mint julep. Kick your feet back and do not do a thing. Just think about this. As a matter of fact, I think we should think a lot before anybody does another action. I thought that decades ago that everybody needed to freaking quit running around with their hair on fire trying to fix it, trying to just madly do things just for the sake of doing things, that everybody should kind of chill out and just think about it for a while before they moved again. Well, this happened to us back in 2020. That's what a whole lot of people did for a whole year, and it was a lot of people my age, because boomers were uniquely positioned to not be affected so much by the shutdown of everything. Either they were retired, or my husband he wasn't retired, but he was able to just come home and work. And he worked from home, from computers and stuff, Zoom meetings, telephones, stuff like that. And so whatever it was that he was doing, I mean, I just quit interacting with the rest of the world. I did a lot of meditating. I did a lot of not acting. And what I vowed as I watched, so this is where I'm going with this one. For many, many years, I have been watching humanity. And I have been troubled by what I have been seeing. I have been, it has seemed to me that mankind was heading off a cliff. And I didn't know how we were going to stop ourselves, because we just keep having more babies, and we just keep doing things the same way, and we just keep mindlessly hammering out the same. Keep going to war. We keep destroying the ecosystems around us. We keep, paving over, take paradise and pave it over. We keep doing what we're doing. And we don't quit. We're relentless. We just keep having babies, and we keep just getting bigger, and we just keep getting more, and nothing seems to change. And so I was pretty pessimistic. I couldn't see a way out of our problems, that it was just going to get worse. We were headed for an apocalypse, and then a post-apocalyptical world after that. A kind of post-apocalyptical winter was just facing our future. That's what I thought. I actually no longer think this. So that's why you're going to want to listen to the show, because by the end of this, we're not at a post-apocalyptical world. We're at our dreams come true and happily ever after. And how do we get there? That's where we are. When we get to the end of this discussion, we're gonna find our way out of the maze. We're gonna lead ourselves out of the wilderness and into a very bright, beautiful future. A future where the vortex of our creation is waiting for us. It is sitting there waiting for us, and I'm going to explain to you how to get there and who we are. We're going to talk about that, our misunderstandings of who we are, and how the understandings of who we are is going to get us where we want to be. That seems like a lot. Well, I think that the biggest destructive force, the biggest destructive problem that we are, has to do with us using fossil fuels and the way our transportation systems insist on laying tires on the surface of the planet. And so we have to coat the planet in concrete and asphalt and chop down, we have to blast through, hills and take down forests and stuff to make sure that car can go through. We're on the surface, crawling on the surface of the planet. That's one of the problems. And our misunderstanding of gravity is causing that, and our understanding of gravity is going to fix that. Uh, so that's one thing. That will help. That will greatly help in our managing our ecologically destructive nature. The second thing is getting off of fossil fuels. Actually, that's probably the first thing, getting off fossil fuels, and the other one, getting our transportation systems up off the planet. And both of these things are going to come from us understanding source energy and us understanding gravity. And so, what this actually means is we need to understand how reality is coming into being, both in physics and mathematics, so that our technology can match our understanding. And then, from a personal perspective, as we try to understand our own biological equipment, because you are driving a very highly sophisticated and kind of, somebody has pimped our ride, you could say. Somebody has zhuzhed up our equipment. And I think that that's, on the one hand, why we're having so much trouble banging around in the world, because our default setting, especially when we're dealing with trauma, when the human psyche deals with trauma, our default setting seems to go to the negative instead of staying in the positive like it's supposed to. And then we start becoming very destructive beings, very competitive, very separatist, very non-harmonious players on the ground. When we start going to, and it doesn't seem, I believe that it's not just our own personal trauma that will trigger this defaulting to the negative. It is generational trauma will do it, and that means you can be raised kindly without personal trauma. Exactly. But if you, you can look back on your own childhood and go, oh, I had a good childhood. No, my mama didn't beat me. They were nice to me. Everybody was nice to me. Yeah, they let me cry in my crib because they thought that, if I didn't, if they picked me up every time, then I'd start thinking that I was special. And I would be spoiled because I can't spend that much time with you. And so if I spoil you, then I'll just have to disappoint you, so I'm just going to let you cry or whatever. Whatever. Why did I go off on that tangent? The thing is that even if you were not specifically traumatized in large ways, if you were raised by people who were suffering from generational trauma, like I was raised by human beings that lived through as young people and fought as a fairly young person the Second World War. My father was fighting on Tarawa, landing on the beaches of Tarawa when he was still 17 years old. Monstrous. Spent 2 weeks after those few days, that horrific. He operated a 50 caliber machine gun. He came on shore on a Higgins boat, I believe. Some sort of, he wasn't one of those wading chest deep, holding their, AK-47. I'm not sure what they had at the time. Probably wasn't an AK-47. I don't know what it would have been. One of those kind of guns. He wasn't one of those people walking on. That's how they stormed the beach. They had to walk. He wasn't one of those. He operated a 50 caliber machine gun, which was very, very heavy, so he had to come in on a boat. By the way, he also had tonsillitis, had a high fever of well over 100. He says he had a fever of 104. I'm not sure how he had a thermometer to measure that. Might not have been that high, but he didn't tell them that he was sick because he knew that they would confine him to the infirmary on board the ship and not let him join the fight with the rest of his group, with the rest of his buddies, with the rest of his platoon. I just can't even imagine thinking like this. But he was 17 years old when that happened, and why am I saying this? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Let's get back to who am I kind of reasons. I think that our squabbling over resources as nations, as individuals, this is all going to get way, 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 way better and way, way different once we put into place the infrastructure that is really for the future. Our future infrastructure does not look like the infrastructure we got going on right now, which is why it is really, really important that we do not get real practical and allow our senators and our houses of representatives and such vote into place trillions of dollars worth of antiquated infrastructure. Screw infrastructure bills right now. We need to get into alignment with who we are and what we are and how we are uniquely equipped to handle all of the problems that humanity sees on planet Earth right now. We are uniquely positioned to generate the problems that we have generated, and we are also in our design uniquely equipped to solve this problem. But we've got to understand in the process, the only way we're going to do this is if we understand who we are and how this works, how reality unfolds, who am I as an individual, and how I click in to, like a perfect piece of a perfect jigsaw puzzle, how I click in to the greater field around me, harmoniously, joyfully, beautifully, vibrationally in perfection, dancing in harmony with the field around me. I gotta understand how this field works and how I work. So I did say that I don't need to face reality, and the reason I don't need to face reality is my inner being is facing reality. My inner being is fully locked into an absolute perfect reflection of exactly what is going on around me in physics and in physicality. I do not have to face reality. What I would be better served to do is face my inner being and lock into harmonious interaction with her. She is facing reality for me. I need to get into alignment with her. It should be my only job. My only job. That's how come the religious people bang the drum about this one so hard. They're not wrong about this, about being in step with God. That being good with God is the only thing you have to worry about. But I would take some umbrage and quibble some about that language. That G word is all messed up as far as what we're actually talking about in any kind of specific detail. Because everybody, when you use that word, they've got all kinds of different preconceived notions about what that, most of them anthropomorphized, this reflection of themselves, but then cast as an old man and real judgy, But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how the energies in this universe move. We're talking about how they move, how to bring about, through an understanding of these energies and an understanding of ourselves and our configuration, to bring about an understanding of how to solve our problems and get on with joyful coexistence. How everyone's needs get met. The reason we've got riots going on, the reason we have wars being fought, is there are vast numbers of people whose needs are not being met. And what are their needs? There's seven needs, So I'm gonna go in right now. I should probably change this picture, although this is a beautiful representation of your source mind and your specific mind. Your physical configuration has a mind. Your physical mind and your overview mind. You could call it that if you want. Your vibrational self and your conventional self. However you want to look at this. The one on the left, your source mind, is the one that is tagged in to all of the rest of the universe. Absolutely tagged in to all of the rest of the universe, knows everything that's going on. That's and she is actually the reason you don't have to face reality. Face reality. Here, I'm going to air quote it again. Face reality. In the same way that you think you have to face reality. You do have to face reality, but let's face reality as it actually is. Let's not face reality as it isn't. Which is what this discussion is all about that I'm having. This who am I and what the hell are we doing here? And how does this medium that we're swimming in work? And how does reality come into being? And how do we get from where we are to where we want to be? And where are we that we don't want to be? And where do we want to be? All of that, we could talk about all of it. The bit about where we don't want to be, that I have it really condensed because I don't want to spend very much vibrational time looking at it or thinking about it, but it presses me, it pushes me every day. When I feel a hit of negative emotion, I just kind of transfer it over to this. We do have big problems, people, but we have big, big, powerful, powerful capabilities and celestial assistance aplenty. And so we're going to be all right. It is going to be all right. Everybody can just kind of chill out. But we do need to do a couple of things. We've got to get off fossil fuels, and we need to understand gravity. We understand both of those two things. Understanding source energy is going to get us to all of where we need to go. Because understanding source energy brings with it an understanding of gravity, because gravity is baked into the cake. Gravity is the spin that is fundamental to all material appearance, to all apparition, to all experience, to all matter, to all of matter. Spin is baked into the cake. It isn't matter if it don't. It ain't matter if it don't spin. That's the folksy way of putting it. It just ain't matter if it don't spin. And understanding of that will help us understand what the force or the pull, or what the pull of gravity actually is, and how to break free of that, or how to use that. We can create our own little singularity and have the nose of our transportation device falling into a center that we designate and can point in different directions, and then the ship goes that way. Anyway, there's all kinds of ways to do this. We need to free ourselves from gravity, and we need to free ourselves from fossil fuels. Now, both of those may look like really big tasks because we've built a lot of infrastructure along other lines. And so if you spend too much time facing reality, like I said, I'm just air quoting now, I don't need to go back to that. I'm gonna go to this one now, just because I'm looking all kinds of different directions. If we spent too much time facing reality, then we would just be staring at this monstrosity of momentum of infrastructure that we've got going on that's all wrong. It doesn't support where we're going. It doesn't support a future of no fossil fuel use, and nobody's devices are attached to the planet. So you don't have to go to the airport to pay to take the flight somewhere. People can just start learning to fly places, you know? And yeah, you could get together with larger groups and fly in bigger devices, for sure. But we're just going to be doing stuff way, 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 way different than we are right now. So if you, maybe it's just my job to dream about the future and tell you where we're going. Now, I don't know how some of the infrastructure we've got right now is coming down. I don't think that it's my job to think about stuff like that. It's like it's like the analogy I always say. If you do not think 100 years back, actually 125 years back, when the horse and buggy was king, but automobiles had been conceived. And so you wanted to see a world where everybody didn't have horses and buggies, but where everybody was driving cars around. You know, you wanted to see the horses, for instance, free from that terrible. The way we used to use horses was just absolutely dreadful. Have you seen the movie Black Beauty? It's just terrible. I think I said that yesterday. It's because Black Beauty was a particular moment for me and my twin daughters. What a sad movie. Oh my God, the three of us watched that movie. I don't think any of us have ever cried that hard. But anyway, so maybe that's what the moment looks like. Now, how do you get the world of cars? Well, you don't spend your time staring at the fact that we have, well, maybe you do. Maybe you do. And then it starts coming to you how to change the infrastructure. What you don't do is you don't make signs and go out and protest or push back in that way against horses and buggies. You just turn the other direction and go build cars. You just go know what you know and go do what you do. Don't worry about pushing back against what you don't want. So this paradigm that we have on planet Earth right now, I'll tell you right now, in a lot of ways, I really like it. There's so many wonderful things happening. I could go on and on and on and on and on and on about how wonderful the world is. Everywhere you turn, it is trying to organize us in blessed and amazing, loving, kind, imaginative ways, creative ways, in whatever way that you respond to, each to their own. It's just the coolest world. And I want it to keep going and keep going and keep going. And frankly, I could look in directions that are largely just pleasant because we have resources. I can go down to the store and buy whatever food I want. We can go on trips. I have my mortgage is paid. Actually, my not my mortgage. My whole mortgage is paid off as of this month. As a matter of fact, this is the first month that I do not owe a mortgage payment. Amazing. So amazing. However, I live in the same world that you do. And in my country, there's a horrifying election coming down the tracks, barreling down the tracks at us. Horrifying election. And I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter who wins, because either way, Trump is showing up at the inauguration. Whether he wins or not, he's showing up because he's going to claim he did win. And he's probably going to bring a few thousand of his followers, maybe many thousand, maybe armed. I don't know. It's going to get wild. It is going to get wild. So my advice is don't focus that way. Don't focus that way, because there are storms of chaos that they're just going to play out. Don't worry about it, because frankly, they have inner beings too. We have inner beings. I have an inner being. Humanity has an inner being. There is so much going on to our benefit. But, oh, just crossed an hour. So I have about 30 minutes more to cover whatever it is that I decide that I want to cover today. Now, it's kind of frees me in a way to know that nobody listens because I can just talk about whatever I want, you know? Who's listening? But I'm assuming someday somebody will listen, and I'm just I'm just trying to get better and better at pulling this container of information together. Is that a good way to put it? This container of information. This who am I? Who am I in reference to source energy? And the idea is I want to understand my own psychology, and then that helps me be more peaceful and more successful in my individual life. It helps us as human beings me be more peaceful and cooperative and collaborative with one another so that we collectively do a better job. And then ultimately it gets us all to certain things like ultimately, if we want to be completely peaceful upon planet Earth with one another and with the rest of the planet, we need to fully understand who we are and what source energy is so that we can get off of fossil fuels, so that we can quit, so that our carbon footprint becomes a concept of the past that we don't even have to think about anymore. You shouldn't have to think about what you're doing with your physical mind so furiously. You shouldn't have to. And the answer to our problems, if the answer to our problems demands that we all understand all of this with our physical minds, then we're screwed. What we actually need to do is to get into alignment with our inner beings. Now, that is different than understanding it with our physical minds. You don't have to understand it with your physical mind. You can, especially if you're one of those kinds of people who just has that really active, logical, intellectual mind, which I do, by the way. I have overthought this and overthought this and overthought this for 6 decades. And now it's coming to fruition as I understand that it's not actually your physical. There's 2 things required. You either need to consciously understand it. Your physical mind needs to consciously understand it, or it needs to have some other way of getting out of the way. It either needs to understand and consciously be cooperating with that aspect, or you need to get out of the way. What happens more often than not is your physical mind doesn't understand and yet feels obligated to lead the way. And that, I believe, is why we have the problems that we have on planet Earth right now. Very quick, the problems are 6th mass extinction, very big problem. Global warming, it's actually, we are contributing to an already occurring cyclical warming event. And on top of that, the burning of fossil fuels is exacerbating an already difficult situation. So that's what the problem with global warming is. We're not going to turn back the global warming climate clock back to what it was, before we started messing with this 100 years ago. But we will be able to handle the naturally occurring astronomically the reason it's happening is because of astronomical things, where the earth is, where the sun is, how the sky is, how that kind, this more big stuff that we don't have any control over. But on top of that naturally occurring global warming event, we are burning fossil fuels, and it's catastrophic what's happening. So I don't want to get bogged down into the negativity. Let's just keep going with the list. War just won't quit. That war in Ukraine, is it over yet? The one in the Middle East, is that one over yet? And when it becomes over, how is it over? Is it because Israel finally, stopped anybody's ability to... I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. War is still a problem. How about starving children all over the planet? That's a problem. Drowning polar bears. Well, that's adjacent to the climate one. How about Garbage Island? I have heard of Garbage Island, a big swirling mass of garbage in the Pacific Ocean, the size of Texas, they say. I don't know. I suppose if I Googled Garbage Island, I might be able to see such a thing, but I don't even know if I can handle looking at such a thing yet. At some point, when I'm really looking at where we're going and not focused on where we are, I will be able to look at Garbage Island and see whether there really even is such a thing. How about growing deserts? That's a problem. All of these problems, every single one of them can be fixed if we understand who we are. Understand our own design, our own equipment, and then on top of that, get off of fossil fuels. So I have a half an hour left. Do I want to talk about human psychology, or do I want to talk about fossil fuels? I know that nobody watches this show, and it's probably a good thing at this moment, because we might still be at a moment where someone like me, if I could really get people to believing that we could get off fossil fuels, somebody might still be inclined to murder me over that. And so the fact that nobody listens to me means that I'm on nobody's radar, and I'm not pushing back against anybody. I'm not sure exactly whose radar I would get on if I'm not pushing against anybody, because when I start pushing against somebody, that's when their radar goes up and they feel me in the field, and that's when they go seek and destroy me. If I don't push against them, if I have no resistance within me whatsoever, because honestly, those oligarchs are not your enemy. Netanyahu's not our enemy. Vladimir Putin is not our enemy. And Donald Trump is not our enemy. Yet it seems like they are, but they aren't. There is only one of us here. And there is no us and them, and the polarity itself is the enemy. Now, I'm not saying that physically... Actually, I'm not saying anything about actions whatsoever. I'm talking about understanding. I'm talking about putting this under the net of your consciousness and seeing it as one big thing. And when you see an us and them and believe that all the way down to the ground and the physicality, that's when the wars break out. That's when we can't get along with one another, because we don't understand our actual mechanism and what our negative emotions are actually telling us and how we actually operate. That it is in full flagrante. I think that's the word. If it's not the word, I hope I came close enough so that you know what I'm saying. Full flaming glory. The illustration that you do not know who you are, and you do not understand source energy, and you do not understand the setup that you are in, the divine matrix that you are divinely, eternally a part of. So, which one? Practical? So for now, since nobody's watching and I'm not pushing back against anybody, it's not likely that I'm going to be on anybody's murder target. But there are people. If I was out there right at this moment with thousands of people, well, I don't know. I don't know. Would they shut me down? It's possible. If I was getting too successful too soon. But by the time I peak, there's going to be so many people who already have an inkling of the truth of this that when they hear my words, they're going to go, yeah, I've heard this. I've heard this. This is resonating with me. We can get off fossil fuels. We can get off fossil fuels. And you know what? I don't need to get credit as being on the front lines of this, although I am. I've been thinking about this for a very, very, very long time. But back in 2024, Abraham Hicks kind of handed me a couple of pieces of the puzzle that I didn't have before. I didn't really understand the actual configuration of the inner being. I didn't understand that it was a swirling point of attraction. And I did not understand the law of attraction, and that which is likened to itself is drawn, and the idea of the momentum of my thoughts and the momentum of my emotions, and how they get hold of you. And then it's like if you try to stop that momentum before it gets really going, then you can stop it. But you don't want to be down at the bottom of the bay trying to stop the momentum of the car that you nudged at the top of the hill. But if you try to stop it at the top of the hill before it gets going much, you can do that. But I did not understand that law of attraction and momentum are the same thing. It's why once you start a negative thought, if you don't stop it really quick, why you can flesh that out and then more things, and then oh my gosh, all the people that agree with you, and the next thing you know, you've got momentum going. Well, right now in the field there are certain negative storms that are going to play out. They are going to spin themselves out, and some of them are going to be rather big. Here in the United States, there is an angry storm at the moment behind certain political parties. I don't want to talk about politics today. I could devote a whole day. I could be like, all right, today is who am I? Who am I in reference to source energy? And the subject today is going to be politics. We're going to take all this stuff we've been talking about, and we're going to point the focus over there on politics. Now remember, if you want to stay connected to source energy, you can't fall into the negative zone. So in all of our talking about stuff, oh, whoops, that's the wrong picture. This one. We have to keep track of where we are on our emotional guidance scale. Because if we ever get down into where we're frustrated about this, I'm so frustrated about those oligarchs that just won't give up, whatever. I'm not frustrated about them. As a matter of fact, not at all. They don't have anything to do with it. I'm not pessimistic. I'm increasingly not bored, as a matter of fact. And even I can face all of the problems that I just said that humanity has got going, and I still know where we're going, and I have all kinds of hope about what our future looks like. So think about that. It's because I can see a path out of the wilderness now. And it has to do with getting off fossil fuels, because our getting off fossil fuels is going to allow us to reverse that ecocide that's going on right now. It is mostly going on, the human activity is mostly going on to lay down, whenever human habitats spring up, they need all the road infrastructure and all of the car infrastructure and all of the fuel infrastructure and all of those things, all of the communications infrastructure, and all of that infrastructure right now. The way we are doing it is incredibly destructive, but it does not have to be that way. Because first of all, for communications and power transference, energy transference, all of that, none of it needs any wires. We don't need any wires, and we don't need any fossil fuels, and we don't need any roads. We don't need any of that stuff. And so the way that we are living right now, since it does need all of that stuff, whenever we move into any area, we're very destructive. But we don't have to be that way. And actually, we could easily not be that way. And as soon as we make this little shift that we're going to talk about in the days and weeks to come, we're going to talk about this little shift we're going to make. And as soon as we make that shift, you're going to realize that we easily, amply have the means to take care of ourselves. The 7 needs that human beings need in order to survive, we are going to be able to meet all of those needs all over the world. And I'll tell you what, I've been wanting to do this. I actually want to spend a whole half hour sometime just talking about the downloads of Bashar. Maybe even a whole show. I don't know. But he's got a pretty good download. The 1357. There's an 135711 download. The one is the one that we are all a part of. We are one, and all are one, and one is all, and there's nothing you can do about that. The 3 becomes a perspective. So you try to move from the 1 to the 2, from the allness to the, let's have a polarized view of the 1. And the polarized view always implies the middle position that sees equally on both sides of that polarity. So it's actually a trinity. And so that's the 3. So you go from the 1 to the 3. And then and if you don't understand that, that's fine. We can talk about it on another day. But that is what it is. Then the 5 are the 5 things you can't change about reality. And that is, the first one is you exist. There's nothing you can do to change that. Everything is here and now. There's nothing you can do to change that. The all are one and the one is all. There's nothing you can do to change that. You get back what you put out. What you put out is what you get back. The frequency that you're putting out on is the frequency that everything comes back on. There's nothing you can do to change that. And then the last one is everything changes except for the laws. There's nothing you can do to change that. And so I've been spending the last couple of years of my life, instead of looking at the stuff, because I used to look at stuff. I read historical novels, I looked at history, I looked at the history of wars, I studied human psychology, I studied metaphysics, I just on my own, just looking at stuff and thinking about stuff, but I was looking at stuff. What I didn't have, the last little piece of the puzzle that was handed to me in 2020, was the laws of the universe. And the laws of the universe are such things as the law of attraction, which says that which is like unto itself is drawn. Within a collective and cooperative universe, by the way. So I've been spending more time looking at how the laws work instead of looking at the specific materiality we have on the ground at any given time. Because in a way, it doesn't matter where we are. Abraham tries to explain this all the time through a GPS analogy, where she realized at one point that she was it was way back in the old days when they were using Garmin and Magellan and stuff like that, as opposed to your cell phone, which is really good. It has a really good GPS on it. And Esther and Jerry, they're driving the monster bus and they're going in the wrong direction. Jerry says, you know you're going in the wrong direction, don't you? And she says, no, I followed every turn that she told me to do. I did it exactly right. Let's go back to where we started. Let's reprogram it. Let's see which one of us was wrong. And he said, yeah, or you could just start from here. Because the analogy of that is, it doesn't matter where you are. What matters is where you're going. Keep your eyes on where you're going. Keep your focus on the road ahead. Keep your focus on where you're going, not where you are. And that's why you don't have to stare at the matter around you and focus your physical mind on the matter around you and think with your material mind about how to get out of the pickle you find yourself in, Why you don't have to do that with your physical mind, because your inner being mind, your source mind, actually is in touch with all things material. It knows where you are. It needs you to keep your eye on where you are going, because that's what she's doing. She's keeping her mind on where you're going. And you need to resonate with her. She's got all kinds of great ideas. Go resonate with your inner being. It's the only thing you need to do. And if you want to engage your physical mind, get into alignment with what your inner being knows to be true about things. And then think your own thoughts within that frequency, within that spirit frame. You know, within the frame of reality, think about what you want. Wow. So how do we get off fossil fuels? First of all, I think you need to know that we can. And I think that we need to do it incrementally. Well, we could have been doing it incrementally for the last 125 years. If the spirits of the robber barons and the entities who control the fossil fuel industry, increasingly more and more cooperative components to that cadre of conspiracy, you know. But all of them. So I haven't changed hardly any of my slides, and I haven't shown you all of the slides that I have to show. I advise, go back and watch some of my earlier shows, because I'm at 1 hour and 21 minutes. I'm going to be off of this show in another 9 minutes. So I'm not going to have a chance to show you everything I have about how I believe we're genetically modified and why I think that. And then there's lots of places to speculate about, well, who did that to us? They would have done it about 200,000 years ago. So it would have had to have been an extraterrestrial. Either that, or we have a history of going back on planet Earth way different than we imagine. So here's my links list. This is the links to all of the, in every video I put these links. It's in the description of the video. The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. That's the documentary series that talks about this over a century of brutal suppression of over-unity devices that would have incrementally taken us off of fossil fuels. It just would have. And it still can. We should have a national call for great ideas and have all the young people, all of the smart people, all of the geniuses, everybody, all of the laboratories, except for we can't do it institutionally. It has to be done individually. It has to be done a national call for this. And our institutions have to be out of it, because frankly, a whole lot of our institutions are not going into the future with us, because they are based on us not knowing who we are, quite frankly. Our medical institutions, our communication our systems are so different now from what they need to be, from what they will be when we understand who we are. That I just don't even know. I don't know what to do except for just know what I know. I don't know anything else to do except that. And I get really excited because I see, how cool our future is really going to be. But I see it so far down the road that I really don't have the deep sense of how we're going to make the transition. I hope it's not too rough. It will be rough in places, but it doesn't have to be that rough. If we would start allowing over-unity devices now and quit suppressing them, get them out into the open, then, everyone and his neighbor can start, coming up with great ideas to run their damn farm equipment that doesn't have to do with going down and buying fuel. So cool. It's going to be a really cool future, people. And we are driving the machinery, and I'm talking about the human being vehicle, I think we are equipped to solve this. I really think we are. But only if we understand who we are. Who am I? Hence the show. So we have the lost century and how to reclaim it. Then we have the origin of mass and nature of gravity video. 37-minute YouTube video describes the paper that you can see is listed farther down the list. Then we have Quantum Revolution, first episode of Nassim Haramein's wonderful series on describing how the mathematics well, the name of the paper is The Origin of Mass and the Nature of Gravity. And it's no less than that. It tells you where physical materiality is coming from and how gravity actually works, so that we can pull our transportation systems up off the surface of the planet, and we don't have to slather the surface with concrete and asphalt any longer. Then we have The Connected Universe. That was a kind of a big movie that was made about this in 2016, narrated by Patrick Stewart, describing the mathematics of a connected universe. And then Living in the Future's Past. I recently, like within the last week, I added that one. It's not as whole, but it has some really good concepts. It sees us as the superorganism that we are. And it sees us as made of oil. And it muses about our past and our present and our future. It's actually a really good movie. Go watch that. Then we have Butterfly Dreaming. It's just an article. It's not a video. Then Origin of Mass, Nature, Gravity paper. And then this last one I throw in there because it is all spin. All of the motion of everything that you see everywhere is spin. It's all these individuations, this infinitude of individuated spins kind of held together at the single spin, the singularity of all singularities, the spin that we all come forth out of, each of us in our own divinely autonomous, individuated center of spin. Amen. And you line your spin up with the great spin, and now you're in alignment. You and your inner being are in alignment, and that's the only thing you really need to do. If you did that and then took impulses from that position, looking forward with hope and light, into learning to focus on what you want, focus on the wanted, focus on the preferred, as opposed to focusing on what you've got that you don't like, that implies what you prefer. You've got to keep your eyes on what you prefer. Not just assume that, it's taken care of. And it is taken care of in a way. Your inner being knows what you're implying. But if you don't start focusing on what you prefer, then you're not going to be in on the party. Anyway, so we could talk about being genetically modified, but I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to do that. We could talk about the 4 general states of being, but you know what? We're running out of time. So how would I sum up today's episode? I know that I'm starting to feel more like I need to push the let's get off fossil fuels aspect of it. But this whole subject is a whole package of understanding that will serve us all so well if we would understand who we are and how this works. How does reality come into being so that I can make my manifested reality a better reality? Well, it's all about timing. It's all about when you line yourself up with your inner being. Let's go back to that picture. I think we'll end on this picture. When you small you line up with you big you, your timing becomes amazing, because your inner being knows everything about how everything else is moving, because everything is attached to source through that central spin. And so it knows how everything's moving and knows how you need to move if you are going to rendezvous with all the things that you want. So pay attention to the impulses of your inner being. She's trying to guide you to what you want, She's not trying to guide you to what she wants for you that you don't want for you, but you have to do it because it's good for you. And I guess if I have to go, I'll go kicking and screaming. It's not like that. She is you. She is not someone else. She is you. She is the best part of you. She is the pure, eternal anchor of you. She is who you really are. When your physical body passes away, you are still her. And I don't know how to say it any more clearly than that. And identifying with her is helpful to the situation. It helps you understand that we can overcome our problems. We can have peace on earth. We can meet everyone's needs. We can come into alignment with this greater pattern, this greater field that we are all divinely a part of. And with that, I think that's a good place to end it for today, since I am now over an hour and a half, and it's not like I'm going to get to any other big things that I haven't already started. So I'm going to stop right there. I hope that you, if you listen to this today, I hope that you listen to the one that I make tomorrow. Whether you listen to it tomorrow or a month from now or 6 months from now, I suppose it doesn't matter. Until then, I wish you well. I bid you peace, and most of all, may the source be with you.